was just past midnight when the call came in. 911. What's your emergency? No response. The line was open. Static humming faintly through my headset, but no voice. I checked the caller ID. A landline, registered to a Catherine Willis. The GPS pinged a residential address on the outskirts of town. Hello? I tried again. If you need help, please say something. Still nothing. Then, just before I was about to disconnect, I heard it. Ragged, shallow breathing. And beneath that, something even fainter. A shuffling sound. Like someone moving across hardwood floors. Then the whisper came. So soft I almost missed it. Help me. The line went dead. 12-7 MI dispatched officers to the location immediately. My fingers shaking as I typed out the notes. Possible distress call. Female voice whispered, "Help me before disconnecting. No further communication. Landline. No callback option." I'd taken silent distress calls before. Accidental dials. Kids playing with the phone. But this didn't feel like one of those. Something about that voice, that whisper, had sent a chill down my spine. 20 minutes later, Officer Grant radioed in. Officer Grant radioed in. "Dispatch, we're at the residence." No response at the door. "Lights are on inside." "Try the windows," I suggested, gripping my pen tight. There was a pause, then, "Dispatch, we have a situation." 12:31 and the crime scene was a picture of violence, frozen in time. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the living room looked untouched, cozy even. A blanket draped over the couch, an open book resting on the coffee table. But further in, the signs of struggle became clear. The phone was off the hook, dangling from the wall. The kitchen table was overturned, chairs scattered. A jagged smear of blood trailed from the linoleum to the hallway, disappearing into the bedroom. But no sign of Catherine. "Whatever happened?" Grant murmured, stepping over the darkened stain. "It wasn't long ago. The blood was still wet." 1, 2. And we pulled the security footage from a neighbor's camera. The timestamp read 11:57 p.m. Just 10 minutes before the call. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Catherine standing at her front door, barefoot in a nightgown, speaking to someone just out of frame. Her body language was tense. Then she stepped back. A hand shot out, gripping her wrist. She fought. She screamed. A silent, grainy cry. The stranger forced their way inside, slamming the door shut behind them. That was the last time anyone saw Catherine Willis. 2:14. And while the officers scoured the house for evidence, I stayed on the line, listening, really listening, to the recording of Catherine's call. I played it on loop, each time feeling more unsettled. Then I heard it. Something I'd missed before. In the background, beneath her whisper, was a voice, not hers. A man's, low, muffled. He was telling her what to say. 3:00 a.m. the officers found more blood in the backyard, leading toward the woods. A search team was called in. Then, a break in the case. Officer Grant found something stuffed behind the bedroom dresser. A crumpled sheet of paper, hastily torn from a notebook. On it, scrawled in jagged handwriting, "He's been watching me for weeks. I told the police. They didn't believe me. If I go missing, it's him." The bottom of the page was smeared in blood. But there was something else. A name. One that made my breath catch in my throat. Detective Alan Briggs. 4:12 a.m. Briggs was one of ours, a respected detective. Could Catherine have made a mistake? Maybe she was paranoid. Maybe this was just fear scribbled in desperation. But then we checked his records. 2 years ago, he investigated a string of stalking cases in the area. Women who reported being followed. Strange footprints outside their homes. Phone calls in the middle of the night. Silent, like the one I received. None of those cases were solved. The women, they all disappeared. I-45, and we tracked Briggs down at his house. When the officers arrived, they found his car running in the driveway, trunk slightly ajar. Inside, a bloody rope, a knife, and strands of long dark hair. They arrested him on the spot, but Catherine was still missing. And what we found in his basement made everything worse. 6:0 a.m. The basement was wrong. Newspapers plastered the walls. Articles about missing women, crime reports with their photos circled in red ink, yas lined the shelves, each one labeled with a name. Inside, locks of hair, rings, scraps of clothing, trophies. Then we saw the chair, strap still fastened, blood still wet, and next to it, a landline phone. The one he made Catherine use to call 911 before dragging her away. 7:30 a.m. the search team found her miles into the woods, barely alive. Briggs had buried her alive, covering the makeshift grave with leaves and branches. But she fought. She clawed her way through the dirt, fingers raw and bloody. She survived. She was the only one who did. Briggs confessed to everything. He had been preying on women for years, choosing his victims carefully, stalking them, learning their habits. He enjoyed watching them, playing the role of the detective, investigating their own disappearances. When they grew too scared, when they went to the police, he knew no one would believe them, because he was one of the police. I still think about that call. The way Catherine whispered for help, the way her voice trembled under his control. I replay it sometimes, late at night, in the quiet hum of the dispatch office. And sometimes I hear something new, not in the recording, but in my headset, a faint, static-filled breath, like someone is still on the line, still whispering, still calling for help. The air in the dormitory room felt heavy, as if it were holding its breath. Emily couldn't pinpoint why, but something about her new roommate, Sarah, set her nerves on edge. Sarah was quiet, too quiet. Her presence more shadow than substance. Under her bed sat a locked trunk, old and battered, its surface scratched like it had clawed its way out of somewhere dark. The room itself was a cramped box of peeling paint and flickering lights, the kind of place where secrets festered. Emily's bed hugged the window, letting in slivers of moonlight, while Sarah's lurked in the corner, swallowed by gloom. One night, Emily woke to a sound, a soft, insistent tap, 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 like fingernails on hollow wood. Her eyes fluttered open, and her breath hitched. Sarah wasn't in her bed. The closet door, always bolted shut, hung slightly open, a black maw in the dimness. Then she saw her. Sarah, standing motionless, her pale face glowing faintly in the dark, staring right at Emily. The tapping stopped. "Bad dream," Sarah murmured, her voice a low hum that vibrated in Emily's chest. She glided back to bed, leaving Emily trembling, the silence now louder than the sound. Morning came, gray and sluggish, but the memory clung like damp rot. The dormitory halls creaked with every step, pipes groaning like distant moans. Emily tried to brush it off. Maybe she'd imagined it. But Sarah's oddities piled up. She'd vanished for hours, no explanation, and a sour, earthy smell seeped from that trunk. Emily's skin prickled whenever she passed it. She had to know what was inside. Late one afternoon, with Sarah gone, Emily knelt by the trunk. Her pulse thrummed as she jimmied the lock with a bent paperclip. The lid groaned open, and a wave of musty air hit her, dank, like wet earth and something worse. Inside, a hidden panel held yellowed newspaper clippings and Polaroids. The headlines screamed about Lila and Ben, two students who disappeared last spring, their faces plastered across campus flyers. The photos were worse. Lila's eyes wide with panic, Ben's mouth taped shut, both bound in a shadowy room. Emily's stomach lurched, footsteps echoed in the hall. Sarah, she snapped the trunk shut and dove under her covers, heart hammering as Sarah entered, paused, and sniffed the air like a predator. Sleep brought no relief. Emily dreamed of a suffocating tunnel, walls slick with grime. Sarah's voice slithering through. You shouldn't have looked. Now you're mine. She woke to a new sound. Scritch, scratch, scritch. From the closet, the door was cracked open again, and in the dark, something pale twitched, like fingers curling back into shadow. She didn't dare move. By daylight, dread had rooted deep. A note slipped under her pillow, scrawled in red. Stay away, or you're next. The letters were sharp, erratic, a child's hand gone mad. Emily's hands shook as she showed it to Mark, her friend from psych class. We need to tell someone, he said. But before they could, chaos erupted. Sirens wailed, boots thundered, and police stormed the dorm. They tore into Sarah's corner, wrenching the trunk open. The stench hit first. Rotting meat and despair. Then the sight. Lila and Ben, folded impossibly small, their skin gray and sunken, eyes staring into nothing. Sarah didn't fight as they cuffed her, her face a blank mask. As they dragged her out, she turned to Emily and winked. A slow, deliberate flicker of intent. The cops found no murder weapon, no proof beyond the bodies, but it was enough. Emily thought it was over. She was wrong. That night, alone in the room, the closet door creaked. A wet, gurgling rasp spilled out, low and alive. Emily fumbled for her phone, its light catching a folded paper on her pillow. Sarah's handwriting. You were always my favorite. I'll be back for you. The gurgling swelled, and something slithered into view. Pale, glistening, too many limbs. Emily screamed, but the sound drowned in the dark. The storm swallowed the highway whole. Claire Bennett white-knuckled her steering wheel, her headlights barely piercing the rain as she pulled into the gravel lot of the Redwood Inn. The neon sign buzzed like a dying insect, its flickering glow revealing a two-story relic hunched against the pines. Inside, the lobby reeked of wet carpet and something sharper beneath. Bleach maybe, or the metallic tang of old pennies. The clerk never looked up as he slid a brass key across the counter. Room 217. Ice machines broke. The room smelled like mothballs and regret. Faded floral wallpaper peeled inward, as if the walls themselves were trying to escape. Claire tossed her suitcase onto the bed, its springs screaming under the weight. She didn't bother unpacking. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, branches clawing at the window. She checked the lock twice, 3 times. Sleep came in fits. At 2:17 a.m., a sound cut through the static of rain. Scritch, scratch, scritch. Like something carving its initials into the floorboards beneath her bed. Claire lay frozen, her pulse throbbing in her ears. Mice, she told herself. Just mice. But the rhythm felt deliberate. Hungry. When she finally drifted off, she dreamed of fingers curling around her ankle, cold and splintered. Morning light exposed the room's secrets. Coffee stains bloomed like bruises on the carpet. A crack split the mirror above the dresser, fracturing her reflection into something unfamiliar. Claire knelt, peering under the bed for droppings, for nests, for anything rational. Instead, her fingers brushed paper, crisp, folded once. The note was written in jagged red ink, the letters slashed deep enough to tear the fibers. I wasn't in the mood to kill yesterday. You're lucky. Her breath snagged. The air turned syrupy, thick with the smell of rust. She stumbled into the hallway. The note crumpled in her fist and nearly collided with the manager. He was a skeletal man, his yellowed fingers clutching a cigarette. Kids, he said, too quickly. Teenagers break in sometimes. Pranks. But his eyes flicked to the ceiling, to the water stain spreading like a black iris above room 217. Police came. Police came. They dusted for prints, shrugged at the lack of forced entry, and left her with a case number and a hollow joke about late-night jitters. Claire didn't laugh. That night, she dragged the dresser in front of the door, her muscles burning. The scratching returned before midnight. Louder, closer, now accompanied by a wet, rhythmic clicking like a tongue testing the edge of a knife. She reached for her phone, thumbing out a text to her sister. Something's wrong here. The screen blinked. No service. By dawn, the TV woke her. Static hissed from the screen, though she'd never turned it on. Claire yanked the plug from the wall. The static died, then flickered back, bathing the room in grainy monochrome. A camera feed. Her bed. Her suitcase. There. Asleep minutes ago, one arm dangling over the mattress. The lens was hidden in the smoke detector, its red eye unblinking. She tore it down, wires spitting sparks. Another note fluttered to the floor. Watching you sleep is sweeter than killing. Almost. Behind her, the closet door creaked open. She ran. Bare feet slapped against the hallway's cracked linoleum. The lobby's fluorescent lights buzzing like wasps. No one was there. The clerk's chair lay toppled, a coffee mug still steaming. Rain blurred the parking lot. Her car sat alone. Tires slashed to ribbons. Windshield wipers bent like broken fingers. Keys gone. Back in the room, the bed had been stripped. The sheets lay in a heap, reeking of pennies and salt. A third note was pinned to the bare mattress. You should have checked under here. Beneath it, the fabric was stiff with stains. Old blood, flaking at the edges. Midnight, the power died. Claire's flashlight beam trembled as she swept it across the walls. The scratching wasn't beneath her anymore. It was inside the wall, behind the headboard. A hollow knocking. Thump, thump. She pressed her ear to the plaster. A voice, muffled and raw, seeped through. Let me out. She swung the lamp like an axe. Drywall shattered. The hole exhaled a stench, rotten meat, mildew, and candy-sweet decay. Inside the wall, a nest. Empty water bottles, protein bar wrappers, and Polaroids. Dozens. Women in bed, sleeping, crying. One with duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide as moons. The top photo was fresh. Claire, curled under the quilt. Taken hours ago. A floorboard groaned behind her. The dresser still barricaded the door. The window was locked. Claire's flashlight flickered, then died. Shadows pooled, thick and liquid. Something warm dripped onto her shoulder. She looked up. He clung to the ceiling. Limbs bent at impossible angles. Fingers splayed like spider legs. His face was a nightmare of stretched skin. Lips split into a grin too wide for his skull. Moonlight caught his eyes. Glossy, black, reflecting her face back in fragments. Moods changed, he rasped. They found her car a week later, abandoned in a ditch miles from the Redwood Inn. Her phone lay in the mud, text unsent. The motel burned down the same night. Faulty wiring, the report said. But locals tell stories. Hikers swear they've seen him, a shadow skittering through the ashes, leaving notes under doors of nearby motels. I'm always in the mood now. In Denver, Claire's sister received a package. No return address. Inside, a VHS tape. The footage shakes distorted, but clear enough. Claire sleeps in room 217. A hand, pale and scarred, reaches from beneath the bed, brushing her hair. The tape ends with a whisper, warped by static but unmistakable. You're next. The postmark was stamped from a town not on any map. The house on Maple Street was picture perfect. A two-story colonial with a white picket fence, a sagging porch swing, and windows that glowed warmly against the dusk. For Jessica Reynolds, a 34-year-old paralegal fresh off a messy divorce, it was a lifeline, a place to stitch her life back together. But 3 weeks after moving in, the phone calls started, and the dream unraveled. It was a Tuesday night, rain tapping the roof like impatient fingers when the landline rang. Jessica frowned. Nobody had that number yet. She picked up expecting a telemarketer. Instead, A raspy whisper slithered through the receiver. "Nice red mug, Jess. Coffee's cold now, huh?" Her breath caught. She stared at the phone, its silence louder than the storm outside. The calls came sporadically after that, each one a shot of ice in her spine. "You hummed that song in the shower this morning. Yesterday, right?" The voice was wet, guttural, like it gargled gravel. Jessica ripped the shower curtain back that night, half expecting a shadowed figure, but found only steam curling in the dim light. She called the police, who traced the number to a burner phone. Untrackable. "Change the locks," they suggested. She did. It didn't help. One midnight, the phone jolted her awake. "You left your bedroom window cracked. I like the breeze." Her heart thudded as she lunged for the window, locked tight, just as she'd left it. But the curtains swayed faintly, as if brushed by an unseen hand. She yanked them shut, the fabric cold against her fingers, and slept with the lights on. The hum of the house now a sinister drone. Days bled into weeks, and the whispers grew bolder. "That chicken you cooked last night smelled good. Too bad you burned the rice." Jessica gagged, staring at the trash where the charred grains sat. She stopped cooking, living off cereal, her eyes darting to every shadow. The house felt alive, its creaks and groans mocking her. One morning, she found a smudge on the kitchen counter, a greasy thumbprint, too wide to be hers. She scrubbed it until her knuckles bled, the faucet's drip echoing like a heartbeat. The tipping point hit on a Friday. The phone rang at 3 a.m., the witching hour cloaking the house in thick darkness. "Check the garage, Jess. I left you a gift." The voice giggled, a sound like bones rattling. Trembling, she grabbed a flashlight and crept to the garage, the door creaking open on rusted hinges. The beam caught something glinting, a single Polaroid taped to her car's windshield. It was her, asleep on the couch, her mouth slack, the TV's blue glow painting her face. Scrawled on the back in jagged ink, "Sweet dreams." She dropped it, the photo fluttering to the concrete like a dead leaf, and ran inside, bolting the door. Sleep evaporated after that. Jessica's days blurred into a haze of coffee and paranoia. She hired a tech guy to check her home security system, cameras, alarms, the works. He found nothing amiss, but his parting words haunted her. "These smart systems? Hackers love. M. 1 week password, and they're in." That night, the phone rang again. "You're so close, Jess. Look up." She froze, her gaze snapping to the ceiling. A faint scratch came from the attic, like nails on wood. Her throat tightened. The attic was locked, the key buried in a drawer. She hadn't been up there since moving in. Armed with a butcher knife and flashlight, she climbed the stairs, each step groaning under her weight. The attic door hung ajar, the lock dangling, its pin bent. The air up there was sour, heavy with dust and decay. She swept the light across the room and choked. A mattress sagged in the corner, stained and reeking, surrounded by cigarette butts and empty food wrappers. On the wall, smeared in crimson streaks that glistened wetly, were the words, "Home Sweet Home." Her scream died in her throat as a shadow shifted behind her. She spun, the beam catching a figure, tall, gaunt, his face a roadmap of scars. One eye clouded white, the other glinting with feral glee. "Surprise," he rasped, his voice the whisper from the phone. He lurched forward, and she slashed wildly, the knife nicking his cheek. Blood welled, black in the dim light, and he snarled, lunging again. Jessica stumbled back, tripping over a loose board. It popped up, revealing a crawl space, and more Polaroids spilling out, dozens of her, captured in private moments. She scrambled downstairs, slamming the attic door as he pounded against it, the wood splintering with each blow. The phone was dead, the power flickering. She hit the security panel's panic button, the alarm shrieking. red light strobing like a nightmare's pulse. The door burst open, and he staggered out, a grin splitting his ruined face. "You're mine, Jess," he hissed, his boots thudding closer. In a surge of terror, she hurled the knife. It sank into his thigh, and he roared, crashing to his knees. She grabbed a cast-iron skillet from the counter and swung, the crack of metal on bone reverberating as he crumpled. Police lights bathed Maple Street minutes later. They dragged him out. Mark David Elroy, a drifter with a rap sheet of stalking and break-ins. He'd hacked her security system with a cheap laptop, turning her safe haven into his playground. He lived in her attic for a month, slipping through the house at night, whispering her life back to her. The Polaroids were his keepsakes, the coals his taunts. Jessica sold the house the next week, fleeing to an apartment across state lines. But the horror didn't end. 2 months later, alone in her new place, the phone rang at 2 a.m. She answered, dread pooling in her gut. Static crackled. Then that voice, faint, impossible, whispered, "New curtains, Jess. Green's my favorite." She dropped the phone. There's something uniquely unsettling about being in a foreign country, in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by people you don't know. You're vulnerable, reliant on strangers, trusting that the guide leading you through narrow streets and winding paths has your best interests at heart. But sometimes that trust is misplaced. Sometimes the guide doesn't lead you back. It was supposed to be a dream vacation, a small group tour through the remote landscapes of South America, ancient ruins, hidden waterfalls, off-the-grid villages untouched by modern tourism. There were 6 of us: Mark and Lisa, newlyweds from California; Dana, a solo traveler from New York; Eric and me, backpacking friends looking for adventure; and our guide, Miguel. Miguel was charming, experienced, and knew the land like the back of his hand. His company had glowing online reviews, and he promised an authentic experience. But by the time we realized what authentic meant, it was too late. The tour started well. Miguel took us deep into the jungle, where we marveled at Mayan ruins covered in creeping vines and bathed in golden light. Then came the first red flag. "Tomorrow, we go somewhere special," Miguel said at dinner, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. "A place not many outsiders have seen." Lisa hesitated. "Is it safe?" Miguel laughed, a low, guttural sound. "Of course, you are with me." Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. The next morning, we packed into a rusted old van. Miguel drove us deep into the countryside, where roads became dirt paths, then nothing but jungle. We stopped in a nameless village, just a handful of houses, the kind you don't find on maps. The people here didn't smile. An old woman muttered something in Spanish as we passed. Dana, who spoke the language, paled. "What did she say?" Mark asked. Dana hesitated. Then, in a whisper, "She said we won't leave here." Miguel led us on foot to a hidden waterfall. By midday, we realized we were lost. The path had vanished. The trees grew denser. The jungle pressed in, thick and suffocated. Eric checked his phone. No signal. "We should head back," Dana said, glancing at Miguel. Miguel smiled. "It's just ahead. Keep walking." But his voice had changed. Less friendly, more insistent. Then we heard it. A rustling. Footsteps. Shadows moved between the trees. Miguel stopped walking. He pulled something from his pocket. A whistle. He blew it, one long, piercing note. Then, silence. Lisa's hand gripped Mark's arm. "What was that for?" Miguel didn't answer, but the forest did. They came fast. Men, faces covered, machetes gleaming. Lisa screamed. Eric swung his backpack like a weapon. I ran. I didn't look back. Branches slashed my arms. My breath came in ragged gasps. Behind me, Dana's cries were swallowed by the jungle. Then, gunfire. A single shot. Then silence. I collapsed into the dirt, shaking. My heart pounded in my throat. I knew then that the others were dead. I hid until dark. The jungle was alive with sounds. Howls, insects, distant murmurs of laughter. Miguel and his men were celebrating. I crept through the underbrush, forcing myself forward. My hands touched something slick. Blood. Lisa's body. Her throat had been cut. Mark's body lay beside hers, twisted, unnaturally. Dana was nowhere to be found. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. Then, a voice. Miguel's. Someone is still out there. I ran through trees, over rocks, until my legs gave out. I curled into the roots of a massive tree, praying I wouldn't be found. Hours passed. Footsteps. Too close. Then a whisper. Come out. I know you're here. I held my breath. Miguel's boots stopped inches from my hiding spot. Silence. Then he moved on. I waited until the sun rose. Then I ran again. By morning, I found a road. A truck slowed. A local farmer. He saw the blood, my terror. No questions, just a nod. He drove me to the nearest town. The police didn't believe me at first. Not until they found Lisa and Mark. Not until they found Miguel's name in past missing persons reports. Not until they found the bones. Miguel vanished. Some say he fled to another country. Some say he still leads tourists into the jungle, disappearing them. And every now and then, new reviews appear on his website. 5 stars, glowing praise. But I wonder, how many of them are real, and how many never made it back? The blacktop shimmered under the relentless sun. Waves of heat rising from the cracked asphalt, distorting the horizon into a restless mirage. Dust swirled across the shoulder of the road, catching in Sarah's dry throat as she shifted her backpack. Her arms sore from hours of walking. She had been out here for what felt like forever. Thumb extended, hope shrinking with each passing car that ignored her. The last gas station had been miles back, a forgotten relic of rusted pumps, and a lone attendant who barely acknowledged her existence. She couldn't afford a motel, couldn't turn back. She needed this ride, desperately. The weight of her mistake, coming out here alone, thinking she could handle the trip on her own, settled like a stone in her gut. Then, the distant growl of an engine cut through the silence. A hulking semi-truck loomed into view. Its paint faded to a weary gray. The headlights, clouded with dust and insects, flickered briefly as the vehicle shuddered to a stop a few yards ahead. A rush of relief flooded Sarah's chest, but wariness prickled at the back of her mind. Still, what choice did she have? The driver's side door groaned open. Need a lift, hon? The voice was warm, gravelly, carrying the practiced ease of a man who had spent years on the road. The driver leaned out, a wide grin splitting his sun-creased face. A faded baseball cap shadowed his eyes, but she caught the way they scanned her quickly, efficiently, before returning to easy friendliness. Sarah swallowed hard. Please, she said, her voice raw from the dry air. Anywhere west would be a miracle. The man chuckled, the sound rich but slightly hollow. Miracles happen, he said. Name's Hank. Hop in. The cab was high, and Sarah scrambled up with clumsy urgency, her fingers gripping the edge of the doorframe for stability. Inside, the air was thick with the mingling scents of old leather, stale coffee, and something metallic beneath it all. Faint, but unmistakable. The passenger seat was worn, the vinyl cracked in places, and a small pine-scented air freshener swung lazily from the rearview mirror, failing to mask the deeper smells. Hank pulled back onto the road, shifting gears smoothly. The rumble of the truck beneath her was oddly soothing, a rhythmic vibration that made her body relax despite the creeping unease, scratching at the edges of her thoughts. You headed far? Hank asked, keeping his eyes on the road. California, Sarah said, glancing at him. Well, I don't have to get that far. Just closer. I'll figure it out from there. Hank nodded, a thoughtful hum in his throat. Long trip. Lucky I found you out here. Lucky I found you out here. Not many folks stop for hitchhikers these days. Sarah forced a smile. gripping her backpack a little tighter. Yeah, lucky. For a while they talked. Hank was easy to talk to. His voice steady, reassuring in a way that made the road seem less lonely. He told her about the different places he'd driven through, the odd folks he'd met along the way, how truck stops had the best food if you knew which ones to pick. It was normal, too normal. Then, as they rumbled down the endless stretch of highway, Hank let out a low chuckle, almost to himself. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, lingering there a beat too long. Cargo's a bit lively tonight, he mused. Sarah frowned, a ripple of unease creeping up her spine. Lively? She echoed, forcing her voice to stay light. Hank shrugged, but the movement was stiff. Yeah, got some folks in the back. Heading upstate? Long shirt for them. Cooped up like that. His smile was still there, but something had shifted, just slightly. The warmth in his eyes had dimmed, replaced with something else, something unreadable. Sarah's fingers tightened on her backpack. Folks, the word hung in the air, heavier than it should have been. He hadn't said cargo, not supplies, not freight. Then, she heard it. A dull, rhythmic thud from the trailer behind them. Faint, but insistent. The sound of something or someone striking metal. Sarah stiffened. What's that? Hank's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Told ya, he said, his voice smooth, lively. Her stomach clenched. Another noise joined the thud, a muffled, shuddering gasp, a sound that was unmistakably human. She turned her head slightly, peering through the grime-streaked rear window of the cab. The trailer loomed behind them, dark and featureless in the dying sunlight. But inside, someone was there. The whisper of movement. A frantic shuffle. A sharp thump. Panic bloomed cold and fast in Sarah's chest. Hank was watching her now. They get restless, he said casually, his fingers tapping the steering wheel. Don't mind. Sarah's throat went dry. This wasn't right. This wasn't right. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears as she forced herself to breathe. Think. Stay calm. She risked another glance at Hank. His right hand, which had been gesturing as he talked, now rested on the gear shift. And then she saw it. A knife handle, just barely visible beneath the cuff of his denim sleeve. The blade concealed but unmistakable. The way his fingers hovered near it, relaxed but ready, sent a sickening wave of realization crashing over her. This was no ordinary ride. Hank's voice dropped lower, almost intimate. Long way to go, he murmured, finally meeting her gaze. And there it was. The mask of friendliness, the easy smiles, gone. His face, once so welcoming, had gone blank, empty, like a man slipping out of character, no longer needing to pretend. Sarah swallowed, her throat clicking dry. Her muscles screamed to move, to do something, but she stayed still. She had no phone signal. No one knew where she was. She was trapped, miles from anywhere, in a truck with a man who had people locked in the trailer, and a knife hidden just out of sight. Her hands, slick with sweat, gripped her backpack like a lifeline. He knows, I figured it out. The truck rumbled forward, swallowing more miles of empty road. The sky outside was bleeding into twilight, and somewhere, deep in the trailer, someone sobbed. Sarah's breath hitched. This wasn't a ride home. This was a ride into hell. You don't notice the devil in the details until it's inside your veins. Ethan Cole's first clue was the taste. Bitter, chemical wrong, when he swallowed his nightly anxiety pill. But exhaustion blurred the edges. He just moved into the crumbling Victorian on Hemlock Street, its floorboards groaning like old bones, its windows rattling with every gust off Lake Erie. The realtor called it charming. The neighbors called it cursed. Ryan lashed the attic window as Ethan unscrewed the orange bottle. Clozapine, the label read. Same as always. But the pill felt heavier, chalkier. He shrugged it down with lukewarm coffee. By midnight, his limbs were anchors. Shadows writhed on the ceiling, twisting into shapes. A hand, a noose, a face pressed too close to the glass. He told himself it was stress, the move, the divorce. Until his phone buzzed, screen cracked but glowing. Unknown number, you awake? The house creaked. Something scratched at the front door. Not an animal, rhythmic. 3 slow drags, then silence. Morning light brought fog and a migraine. Ethan stumbled to the bathroom, splashing water on his face. The mirror reflected a stranger, sunken eyes, sweat-damp hair. Behind him, the shower curtain rustled. Just the draft, he thought. But when he turned, the vinyl bulged inward, as if someone had exhaled against it. His pills sat on the sink. He popped the cap. A slip of paper fluttered out. Stop taking these. The pharmacy insisted nothing was wrong. Same prescription, Mr. Cole, but the pills left a metallic aftertaste, like licking a battery. That night, Ethan Googled the markings on the tablet. No results found. Wind howled through the chimney. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck 3 a.m. Too many times. It kept chiming. 4, 5, 6, until the gears snarled. Ethan crept downstairs, flashlight trembling. The clock's face was cracked. Inside, nestled among dead gears, lay a Polaroid. Him, asleep in bed, taken hours ago. He called the police. They found nothing. No footprints in the mud outside. He called the police. No fingerprints but his own. Old houses settle, the officer said, nodding at the warped floorboards. You're jumpy. Get some rest. But rest was a trap. Ethan woke paralyzed, eyelids fluttering. A figure stood at the foot of his bed. Tall, featureless, wearing a mask of static, like a TV tuned to dead air. It leaned down, reeking of menthol and burnt hair, and pressed a cold finger to his lips. Sure, almost time. The next pill tasted like copper. Ethan spat it into his palm. It dissolved into a black slurry, smoking faintly. He flushed the bottle. That's when the whispers started. Behind the walls, beneath the floor, voices overlapping. He knows. Cut the power. Wait till he's ripe. Ethan tore at the baseboards, nails splintering until he found them. Why? Snaking through the house. Not for electricity, for cameras. The footage was on his laptop. A file labeled Showtime. Him pacing. Him sleeping. Him clawing at the walls. Angles from every room. The timestamp. Live. A chat log popped up. User 743. He's off script. Users doesn't matter. Sedatives in the water now. Ethan's tongue felt swollen. The sink faucet hissed. He drunk 3 glasses that morning. They came at twilight. Ethan crouched in the closet, kitchen knife slick in his hand, as the front door whined open. Footsteps. 3 pairs. Circled the living room. Checked the vents. I smell him. A masked face peered into the closet. Glossy black eyes. A grin stitched with fishing wire. Ethan lunged. The knife sank into rubber, not flesh. Laughter echoed. Still fighting, huh? A needle glinted. Let's fix that. He woke in the bathtub. Ice water lapped his chest. Rusty handcuffs chained his wrists to the pipes. The static-faced figure leaned over him, holding a bone saw. Even here before, Ethan? 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 Ethan. He slurred. No, Ethan. The man who owned this house. We lived here. Until he tried to stop us. The mask tilted. You'll look just like him. The saw revved. Ethan doesn't remember how he escaped. Only fragments. Teeth on steel. Blood in the water. The taste of someone else's finger in his mouth. Police found the house empty. No cameras, no saw. Just a sticky note on the fridge. Better pills now. Sweet dreams. His new prescription came in the mail. Same orange bottle. Same bitter taste. The neighbor's boy vanished last week. His mother knocks on Ethan's door daily, eyes wild. "They're in the walls," she whispers. "Can't you hear them?" He can. Last night, he found a Polaroid under his pillow. The boy, sleeping, a needle in his arm. On the back, a message in red ink. "Thanks for the upgrade.